Baltimore and out on the West Coast for the next at least week. They are now back in this pennant race, obviously, and Anaheim and Seattle in the way at this point. But all eyes will be on the purple crab cake this week, and certainly all things Ravens and NFL. This guy is no stranger as the former columnist at the Baltimore Sun, as well as East Coast, West Coast, now writing for Sporting News. He's one of our favorite guests to have on. We welcome David_C_Steele out on Twitter. He's only my second favorite Steele. He knows that, behind George the Animal Steele. But we welcome David Steele back onto the program. What's going on, man? Happy summer to you. And I guess you're back into this football camp thing right now, and plenty to talk about in 32 separate places, right?
It's just almost too much to talk about on multiple levels, on every team, about the league overall. It's going to be one of those years in the NFL. Maybe there'll be more attention on it than ever as before for a lot of different reasons, both positive and negative. So, yeah, it's that time.
Well, when there aren't actually games going on, it's things like concussion and CTE and blackballing quarterbacks and who the backup quarterback is. That becomes the conversation. And injuries, obviously, when guys get injured. But nothing's going to happen so much over the next month that is going to take this Kaepernick thing away or take the CTE thing away when a guy like John Urschel walks away. So I know you've been a little absent from writing the last couple of weeks. Jay Cutler's a quarterback again in the league, and Kaepernick can't get a job, Dave.
All I can do is laugh sometimes. Yeah, to know that Jay Cutler is back in the NFL, and it's interesting because the thing that we heard from so many people as the summer went on and the free agency season sort of continued was that teams are passing up Kaepernick now, but that'll change in training camp. Starting quarterbacks are going to get injured. There's going to be emergencies going on with all these other teams, and then teams are going to go get Kaepernick. And then that's exactly what happens, obviously, here, although we don't know how big an emergency it is with Flacco yet, and it happens in Miami, and Adam Gase goes out and finds the first familiar face available. He happens to be retired. He happens to be about to go start a broadcasting career, and he happens to want $10 million to come back. And they figure out a way to do it. So, yeah, Jay Cutler is in the NFL and Colin Kaepernick isn't.
Well, the Gase relationship with him is obviously, part of that. And, look, I don't think the Dolphins are going to win 9 games no matter who their quarterback is. And if Jay Cutler wants to come back and run around and have the Patriots and the Jets chase him for $10 million and sulk at press conferences and stuff, he has the right to do that, and God bless the Dolphins for allowing him to do that. But in the case of Kaepernick, you know me to be a pretty liberal sort, sort of out on the left of Bernie Sanders sometimes on certain issues, and probably out onto the right of Donald Trump on some other issues as well. But with Kaepernick, I defended this right on. I'm a free speech guy. I'm a guy that's had free speech taken away. I'll tell you when I took a turn on it, Dave. I took a turn on it last week when his girlfriend, when he's still sort of under consideration with the Ravens, and I think there was enough discussion around the commissioner, around the owner of the team. I don't think the door was closed to him in Baltimore in any way, and certainly not knowing how hurt Flacco was, knowing that they've had Mallett here 2 years and that they re-upped him, and as much as other people might not like Ryan Mallett, he's been here 21 months now. I mean, if he were a problem child, I don't think Flacco would want him. I don't think Harbaugh would want him. I don't think the offensive coordinator's room would want him. But that being said, with Kaepernick, the tweet last week about the slave thing from his girlfriend, dude, if I'm Bisciotti, it's just no. Now it's like, dude, come on, man. You were under consideration. We didn't have a quarterback here. There's money to be worked out. There's starter money and backup money and our cap and whether we really need a third quarterback around here and how bad Flacco is. And the Ravens took arrows from all sorts of directions. But, dude, when you got your girlfriend out doing the slave stuff on the NFL owners, don't expect me to employ you. I mean, I really do believe that Kaepernick has a great message on the kneel, a great message last year, but, boy, his message the last couple of months has not been a solid one for me to say that I want to go out on a limb and have him around as a backup quarterback and deal with whatever the anger backlash would be on that. But he has not been he's been his own worst enemy to a lot of degree in this thing. And, I'm not saying he shouldn't be employed. Matter of fact, I've been the guy saying he deserves to be employed in the league. But don't be stupid, dude. You know what I mean? Make your protest, but, don't be calling the NFL specific owner who's considering hiring you a slave driver. That's just not – that wouldn't work for me if I were Steve.
I would suggest thinking of it this way, that it wasn't as much a shot at Steve Bisciotti that it was a shot at Ray Lewis. And in that context, you can sort of get an idea of how offensive the things that Ray Lewis has said within the context of Colin Kaepernick, on air multiple times.
Fully agree, by the way. Ray Lewis is off the ledge for me. I don't know how anyone in the league could respect him at this point.
And that goes to a lot of what's going on. I think that and I'm not going to be the guy to speak for Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend, and she's apparently a very big radio personality, syndicated wise, and also in New York. And they've been pretty vocal throughout the whole thing, and they've been very tied together and stuff. I get the sense, and I don't know this for sure, because one of my goals, obviously, for the offseason, I would love to sit down and talk to Colin Kaepernick about a lot of these things, and he's been clearly very selective about the interviews he's done locally.
Well, I mean, you only wrote a book on Tommy Smith and stuff. I mean, why would he talk to you, right? So.
Outside of guys like you, I mean, I love as much attention for that as possible, because I think it's very informative on this, and I've been really grateful to everybody who's talked to me about this, because it always gives an opportunity to give a historical perspective on this. Ray Lewis doesn't seem to have that historical perspective. The things that Ray Lewis has said in terms of, hey, if you're going to be an activist, don't talk out loud about it. I mean, it's. The buttons that
I'm in my 24th year of silent protest of Peter Angelos, by the way.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, and the thing is, I get it if Steve Bisciotti is upset about that. I would not be upset. I would understand that. And I think that more than likely Colin Kaepernick is at a point where, what else am I supposed to do to quote unquote impress teams enough to let me come back on? All the things that have been spread around about him all off season have been proven not to be true. He does want to play where people have said, "Oh, he's not interested in playing. He wants to actually quit." He's actually been working out, so he's been staying ready. They've sort of trashed him for his stats. They trashed him. There's been
they trashed him for the record. That's really been it. Yeah,
it's crazy, and so and I'm not saying that the owners have gotten involved in this, and that's really what's going to be at the core of this, is exactly how direct the owners are involved in stopping all this stuff. But again, I would say, that probably killed his chances, certainly here in Baltimore, and probably in a whole bunch of other places around the country that rub a lot of people the wrong way. But if you look at it from the perspective of, that was a direct shot at Ray Lewis for the role he has played in convincing at least one owner that he's not the quote-unquote right kind of guy or right kind of protester, right kind of black player to have on this team, then, that's something Ray Lewis is going to have to deal with. And I get the sense that Colin Kaepernick is probably thinking, well, those are the consequences I'd have to pay. But that's how insulted I was by what Ray Lewis has said.
I'm embarrassed for Ray. I really am. I mean, he's going to be on the podium 51 weeks from now, getting the bust. I mean, I've talked to all the Hall of Fame voters this week, watched the ceremony over the weekend. He's going to the Hall of Fame next year. I guess I'll be running buses for Ravens fans, and we'll go out there and whoop it all up and yell and wear purple and all that stuff. But, boy, this has really been a poor look for him. It really has been.
Yeah.
And he's made his last tackle, so now he's out in the real world, and the very people he represents, he's sort of turned his back on. I kind of can't get over it. I mean, I've always been a fence sitter on Ray Lewis over 20 years of having dealt with him, having been lied to by him, having been, mistreated by, all of that stuff over 20 years. I still respect what he's done on the field, and I respect his stature in the game, and I respect his quote-unquote leadership so much that when he's driving in a car shooting these goofy homemade videos that he does that are these pep talks, the pep talk to sit down and shut up is offensive to me. It's offensive to me. It really is. I mean, that's not a pep talk to me. That's a stick to sports, and that always gets a middle finger from me.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about. When the discussion at hand, the topic at hand, is as big and universal as it is, especially for people right here in Baltimore. And that's why this has been fascinating for all of us here, but also around the country, knowing, what things have been like in Baltimore.
Well, he's the first guy to come here after the riots, right? I mean, he's the first guy on the street saying, "Stop the violence. We're all in this." But shut up. I mean, don't say anything about it. Whatever you do, it's outrageous.
Yeah, and that's where this has become fascinating, because when you talk about Steve Shine, again, this is not a shot at him. He's in a certain situation he's got to deal with. When he talks about, well, I'm trying to gauge the fan support. Gauge the support of those people who are in the city, who were in the middle of all that a couple years ago, who are still living that day to day, and who have to listen to you turning to Ray Lewis, who did the things that he did in opposition to their goals. Say, hey, keep your mouth shut, keep a low profile, don't raise your voice. That's how everything will work out for you. And going to every platform he can find to do it, then that's part of the fan support you got to gauge as well.
David C. Steele joining us here. It is David _C_ Steele out on Twitter, and of course at Sporting News. I've been wanting to get you on for a couple weeks on this Kaepernick thing, and this is and we'll get into the Ravens and Flacco and all that stuff in a minute. But last thing on Kaepernick, and I've wondered this aloud, right? And I did not follow every word that's been said. I have not followed every tweet that has been thrown out in San Francisco when he began the silent protest and taking the knee and had some teammates and opted out of his deal and wanted to go to the market and all that stuff. I just think that over the last, let's say, 90 days, there could have been a lot of things he could do to be proactive in regard to what his message is. Say it once, say it twice, say it again, say it again, say it again, say it again. And instead, I find that his message, especially amongst white people and Trump voters, is very sort of convoluted in black anger and rage and supporting the other side. And I've not heard him coherently sit in front of anyone, including the Ray Lewis little video, Why don't you sit down with Ray Lewis and the two of them can have a public chat about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have not heard enough from him in his own defense, and the only thing I'm hearing and seeing is slave driver, pictures on Twitter. I mean, that's not a good message. I mean, I don't think he's been his own best advocate on what he was trying to accomplish last year. And maybe he said that last October and November. Clearly, the media in San Francisco, and I've had a lot of them on, none of them are really anti-Kaepernick, but they said he sort of went out of his way to be a dick a lot, and he sort of took on that Jim Harbaugh persona, having been around there. I don't know that he's done anything to soften his reputation amongst even people who support free speech like me. I would like to see him be a better spokesperson for himself. Whether he works again or not, I'd like to hear more about his message and his charity and his giveaways and what he's doing in Baltimore. I think he's been very foolish from a PR standpoint, as were the Ravens a week and a half ago, by the way, in how this whole thing was handled.
Well, it's funny because I've talked to a few people about that, and one of the things they said is like, you know what, I don't know if his agent is doing him any real favors. I don't know if the people who are representing him are doing him any favors. You always have to remember that, whenever you talk about protests like this, and again, you can even refer back to, the days of the Tommy Smith and John Carlos and guys like that. They are still athletes. They're not professional, activists. They're young guys, and they're not, always the best spokesman for themselves. And that's not to make an excuse for him or anything like that. When you're in his situation and your career is literally on the line and you're really in a situation where nothing I have done has been enough to answer all the crazy questions. I mean, you wonder right this very second if, what's going through his mind. I'm sure there's probably somebody tapping into it saying, what do you think about this Jay Cutler thing? It's like, how many times did he hear during the course of this offseason, well, he'd be somewhere if he wasn't asking for so much money, even though he's never made a public request for money, or if he was if he wasn't demanding to be a starter, which is something that he never did. There's just been all these accusations and characterizations about him, and what his quote unquote problem is, and what he's doing wrong, and what he should have done, and he's in a position where he almost has to answer them constantly, and do that as opposed to just sort of speaking what's on his mind about stuff. I mean, he's being held to a standard that no other quarterback who's been signed this offseason has had to. Believe me, Cutler. You saw him. Yeah, you saw him when he was introduced in Miami. He literally said it. He was probably only half joking. Hey, I'm not really in shape, but hey, quarterbacks don't have to be in great shape to play. And hey, my wife had to talk me into playing because he doesn't want me around. When you compare that to the fact that he had to jump through hoops just to convince people that he wasn't going to quit on a team, or that he even cared about playing, even at the point where he didn't even, where he wasn't even getting calls for tryouts, then you could see where he's going to be torn a little bit. It's like, okay, am I going to just completely sell out in order to play in the league again and only focus on saying the things that people want to hear, or am I going to stay focused on my message and just totally kill my chances to play in the league again, because literally anything I say apparently rubs everybody the wrong way. So I could see where it's a big conflict for him, and I could see where it can't possibly be very easy.
He is David Steele. He is a longtime writer and columnist here from the Baltimore Sun, if you remember, now at Sporting News, still living locally. And, this is an interesting week with Ravens and Redskins, right? I mean, these ships cross, and I think they should play in the preseason every year. I think they should play in the regular season every year, but that's for another day. They are going to get together this week, and we're going to see whatever Ryan Mallett has under the hood and whatever expectations Ravens fans, who last week it was all about Colin Kaepernick, this week it's going to be about Ryan Mallett. It's going to be about the offensive line. It's going to be about the running game. It's going to be about Joe Flacco's health, I think, underneath of all of this, which is how the Kaepernick to the Ravens thing began to begin with back tweak to Joe Flacco. How are you feeling about the Ravens right now? I mean, certainly there was a period of the offseason where you wouldn't buy stock. Then there was a period of, there's the draft, and they did re-sign Brandon Williams. And then there was the, look at the Macklin thing. I mean, I remember when they went to break in early June, we were feeling pretty good about them. Then they come back, and Urschel walks away for CTE. Flacco hasn't been on the field yet. They've got other guys on the offensive line, nicked and dinged, and Dixon's not going to be here this year. It's really been a messy sort of summer for the Ravens. It would be almost shocking for me if they could somehow win 10 or 11 games through all this, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think everybody who's paying attention to this is at the point where you can't talk yourself into that, hey, it's only preseason week 1, hey, it's only early August mindset, because it's looking like it's tilting toward disastrous already, and the things that we're seeing don't look like they're things that can be resolved by opening day or by even the October 1st. They've got issues that have just been popping up this entire offseason and even through our training camp that are just too hard to dismiss as, oh, it's too early. Oh, we can't worry about that now. Oh, we can't jump to conclusions. I'm not sure what that line's going to look like. And that's, if you don't know that, then you're really going to be in trouble. You don't know who the backs are going to be and how effective they're going to be. And we know from this team's history, if the backfield and the running game isn't working, then a whole lot of other stuff is also not working, and that's not going to work if the line doesn't work, and it just ends up being a domino effect. And when you look at they have to get past the Steelers. They had their window to get past the Steelers last year at the end of the year. They didn't do it. They're trying to stay in position to do that, and they're falling behind. The gap is getting bigger right now. Assuming that Le'Veon Bell will be with the Steelers at some point this year. They are not closing that gap right now. And I'd be shocked if we saw anything, even never mind the first week, what we're going to see, what would happen Thursday night. I can't imagine seeing anything, even in the course of the preseason, that would give any reason for fans to be really confident that they're about to make a playoff run.
It only feels like you can get bad news, right? I mean... Literally, and the Redskins are going to be half trying when they come up here. I had Baldinger on the other day, and he's more impressed with the Redskins than maybe most people are. And I thought they had a pretty tumultuous offseason, and certainly the way the guy runs that franchise. I mean, Chapter 11 of the Peter Principles is now out for you, David, and, on bad ownership. But, how you treat your quarterback in the offseason says a lot, and that's always been ugly. I mean, the shades have always been pulled down there, and it's always been a little bit weird. Gruden has gotten this thing sort of better, but I don't hold out much hope for either of these teams being above 500 right now. I don't think Vegas does either.
No, I doubt that too. I mean, there's a certain pocket of people who have this eternal optimism about that team down there because they make these additions and they talk themselves into ignoring all the subtractions, and they act as if things are all going to work out despite all the chaos going on in the front office and up in the owner's box. And then by the end of the year, things pretty much end up settling to their own level. I mean, it's a base that's practically celebrating the fact that they finished a half game above 500 last year. Oh, they went 8-7-1. That's tremendous. And now they, no matter what you get sold about, oh, look at the wide receivers they added. Oh, look at the defensive players they added. All the positives are immediately negated by the negatives. And I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be like. I mean, you sit and look at what's going on with Kirk Cousins. He's going to play as best he can, but everyone knows this is like a lame duck year for him. Nobody believes that anything's going to change. The team, the people up top didn't do anything to make that better. They in their true nature, they made it worse. They're probably looking at this first preseason game, the same way the Ravens folks are. They're saying, we'd love to see something positive, but there's no reason to believe that will really translate into something positive once the regular season begins. I mean, everyone should be celebrating and throwing a parade if they finish 500, to be honest.
David, next time we get together, football will be going on, and it'll be probably mid-September. Will the Orioles be in the pennant race in September? Will the Orioles be playing meaningful games after football starts? Will I be watching baseball games from London on September 21st, at 2 o'clock in the morning when they start over there?
There will be. It's
really?
Crazy, almost in spite of themselves. That's the only explanation I have for this. They're doing this in spite of themselves because everything they've done, everything that has happened that first half of the year should have just buried them forever. And there should have been no reason they weren't sellers at the trade deadline. No reason they should have just packed it all in and said, we just got to start fresh and clean house and just write this off. It felt right that they were buried at the trade deadline, for thinking that this thing was not over, and yet here we are. It's not over, and they're the kind of team with the kind of players that we've seen in the past already. That if a bunch of them catch their stride in these last 2 months of the year, never mind whether they'll actually make it, they will certainly be in it. They can certainly continue to maintain what they're doing. And hey, look, Manny's back to being like Manny. And for the most part, if you just need that for a 2-month string, that's all you need. If he can do that, that's the kind of player he is. And if he continues to be that player, then yes, they're in the middle of it.
And they're sort of kind of betting against him in the same way the Redskins are betting against Cousins in that, hey, if he hits 218, maybe we can afford him. Starts hitting grand slams in the middle of the night in Anaheim. He's going to be $400 million. They got to get scoped on. I mean, I think, if you don't want these problems to continue, you got to get scoped on. I mean, seeing Mike Trout run around and get his $100 million out in Anaheim this week, it reminds you of what could have been with Machado. Now, I know he had both knees done around that time, and I don't know that I would have been the guy, saying to Manny Machado, here's $150 million, hang around, but it certainly would have been a better investment than Chris Davis.
Yeah, there's that list of signs where you just shake your head and go, like, really is that the best way you could have?
I wonder who in the world would give him that. Oh, that's right. Peter owns the team. Right, yeah, exactly. David, love you. Appreciate you, man. We'll be following everything. Get back on the horse here. It's football season. I know you're going to be camping the rest of the month. He is David _C_Steele with an E, just like George the Animal. He is a writer at Sporting News and the co-author of Silent Gesture with Tommy Smith. You can go check that out on Amazon, as well as David on Twitter and at sportingnews.com. Be well, Dave. Enjoy the rest of the summer, pal.
Thanks very much. You do the same.
You got it. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. Streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault is there for anything you missed this week. And boy, we've had a great week of radio around here. You definitely want to go up there and check that out. I've gotten a lot of nice notes about the Peter Principles and the first 8 chapters that are in the Audio Vault right now, brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. I'll get a couple more of those together when I get my pipes together. Meanwhile, chapter 9, 10, and 11 released this week, including Mike Messina as a New York Yankee. You'll want to go back and relive that and hear all of the bile that came off the lips of Peter Angelos during that mess. You can also get our morning newspaper delivered to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. That comes to you every morning at 7 a.m. digitally. And if there's any breaking news at all, I know we were all waiting on that Kaepernick text last week, wink, wink, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzis will be here talking sports with you from 3 until 5 this Thursday, pre-gaming you for Ravens and Redskins and every Thursday. It is the Sunday Sports Voice, heard on Thursdays from 3 until 5. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.